Before proceeding, make sure that the wiring for the buttons key 1 is to pin 1 and NeoPixel to pin 2. So let's start a new project, Buttons and Neo. And then if you don't already have the NeoPixel extensions, you're going to have to click on extensions. You can type NeoPixel or it's probably there from earlier. Now you have the NeoPixel blocks and let's start setting up our code. We're going to start with this LED block under LED More. And what it's going to do is we're going to find this block that says LED enable false, meaning false, do not enable the LEDs. And what that does is it frees up a bunch of pins on your extension board to be able to use. So we're going to go ahead and do some basic coding. We're going to set up the icon to make sure that it got downloaded. That'll, of course, go away as soon as you disable the LEDs. And now let's set up our NeoPixel. Same as before, you should have it wired to pin 2. It has 12 LEDs wired to pin 2. So now the microbit knows where to look. The other thing is I like to change the brightness. That maximum 255 brightness is a little bit too much for me, so I'm going to lower mine to 40. So why don't you pause the video, double check that your start code looks like this, and then we can continue. You want to create a variable called red, which stands for the red button or key 1. And this red button then we're going to set into the forever block. And now we're going to go down to advanced pins and tell the microbit what pin the red key is wired to. And it's wired to pin 1. That's where it should be wired on your extension board. So set red to digital read pin 1. Now we're going to go to our logic loop and we're going to place it under there and we're going to tell the microbit what to read and write. So if the red button is being pushed, then it should do something. So we're going to use the comparison. So if red equals 0, then let's make the NeoPixel show the color red. So there is the strip show color red, and of course you have to say show. Pause the video, make sure your forever code looks like this. If the red button at digital pin 1 is touched or pushed, then red should show up on the NeoPixel. If it's not pushed, else, what do we want the NeoPixel to do? I'm going to say, let's just clear it. Move this up so you can see. And of course, don't forget, you want to show that it is clear. Okay, this should work. To make the yellow button work, or key 2, we start with proper wiring. Make sure you have it wired as shown. There are 4 different colored keys, so you have to have 4 variables, 1 for each color of button. For the yellow button, let's set up a variable, and let's simply call that variable yellow. And now we need to tell the microbit where the yellow button is. So set yellow to digitally read the yellow button at pin 3. So your wiring should be at pin 3 and your code at pin 3. Now it's very similar as before, but we need a space here. So we're just going to click on this button to make a space for the yellow commands. Okay, so here's the space. So if the yellow button is pushed, let's go back to our logic comparison. Now we're talking about the yellow button. So if the yellow button is pushed, then, well, let's make the NeoPixel show yellow. And again, show. Okay. Else, if the yellow button is not being pushed or the red button is not being pushed, your NeoPixel should show clear. Try it. If the red and yellow button work properly, you guessed it, we're moving on to the key 3 or blue button. Make sure you wire properly and then add the code. You should be able to do this with minimal help. And finally, if you have the red, yellow, and blue buttons working, go to key 4, the green button, key 4 to pin 7, add the code, and try it. Should look like this. And then you can make it even more impressive than this.